Hello, we are going to allow a few minutes for attendees to arrive. Hello, we are going to allow a few minutes for attendees to arrive. I would like to welcome you all to the final part of the series, Summer Tea with Curators, The Five Senses, Hearing. I am Lauren Shea Warner, Membership, Engagement, and Stewardship Coordinator. This five-part series is an informal exploration of the five senses through the lens of the museum's collection. Today's speakers are Aprile Gallant, Associate Director of Curatorial Affairs, Senior Curator of Prints, Drawings, and Photographs, and Emma Chubb, Charlotte Feng Ford, Class of '83, Curator of Contemporary Art. On the next slide, and before I hand this over to our panelists, I wanted to mention that following the presentation, there will be a Q&A. Feel free to submit a question in the Q&A box located on the upper left of your screen. I will now turn it over to Aprile.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm really pleased to be here and welcome everyone to the final Summer Tea with Curators. It's been such a great pleasure for us to be able to share works from the museum's collection with you over this five-part series. So we're sad that this is coming to an end, but pleased that you could join us here today. So the final part of this series is hearing. And Emma and I have chosen two works to speak to you today about. And we wanted, as we were looking at these works together, we realized that we were contemplating the difference between hearing, which can be interpreted as a passive response, and listening, which implies active comprehension. So we're hoping to look at these works together to go deeper into what hearing might mean. And through that, we are looking at two works by contemporary artists of different generations working in different media. Mel Painter, You Say This Can't Really Be America, which is a print series, and Hương Ngô, The Voices in Archive, which is a video. But both of these artists, we realized as we started to work on this program, use our archival research and history as a touchstone in their artistic practice. So I'm looking forward to diving into this discussion today, and I will begin by introducing the work of Nell Painter and You Say This Can't Really Be America. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is the work, You Say This Can't Really Be America. It is it's a single object in 8 parts, a series of digital and screen prints that the artist Nell Painter created in 2017. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the artist because she has a very interesting story. Nell Painter is a retired distinguished professor of American history at Princeton University and the author of 7 books. And her focus was on Southern American history. And 2 of the books that she actually wrote on two of the books that she authored were Sojourner Truth, A Life, a Symbol in 1996, and Creating Black Americans in 2006. And both of those actually dealt with art in some way. The Sojourner Truth really looked at the way that Sojourner Truth used photography as a way to craft her own image. She sold photographs of herself to fund her activism. And creating Black Americans, Painter really looked at some work of contemporary African American artists and how they really fed into the creation of the idea of the Black American. So why is a distinguished professor of history creating art? Well, that is another interesting part of this story. When Nell Painter retired from Princeton, she made the bold decision to go back to art school. So she received a BFA from Rutgers in 2009 and an MFA from RISD in 2011. And after that experience, she wrote a book that she published in 2018 that's a memoir of this experience called Old in Art School. And this was not Painter's first sort of brush with artistic expression. She actually studied art in college for a short period of time, but ultimately decided that she was going to focus on history. So when asked why she decided when she retired to embark on this new career, she says that she responds, because I wanted to and because I could. And I think that she's already started to build this really interesting career as an artist that actually says a lot about that kind of interesting mix between history and visual culture. So, but in working as an artist, one of the things she realized is one of the drawbacks that she had was trying to separate herself from the archive and from history and from facts and from words, and really start to focus directly on the visual. And there's this really great quote that I'd like to read you. She said, "When I go to the archive as a historian, I can't say what I want to find. As an artist, I can do whatever I please to the archive." So there's this sense that being an artist gave her a freedom to really look at her own experience and also to sort of craft things in a visual way that is outside of the archival facts that she dealt with for her entire life. So let's go to the next slide. I want to look at these things panel by panel, even though they are considered one single work. And I want to say a little bit about where she was when she created this. So this was a work that was created at the Brodsky Center for Innovative Printmaking, which at the time that Mel Painter was there was at Rutgers University and is now at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. And Painter has said that she really loves the serial nature of printmaking. She had explored printmaking quite a bit during her undergraduate and her graduate studies. But this was the first time she had actually worked with a master printer to create a work that would be editioned and then sold. And the substance of this work is also very unusual. Within her artistic studies, she really was focusing on trying to separate that idea of, the facts and the discursive or the making of meaning from the purely visual. It was one of the real challenges that she had as an artist, was trying to start to think visually before she was thinking about meaning. But here, she decided that she was going to use a combination of handwork and digital work to sort of aid in that process. So when something is digitized rather than being made by hand, she found that she could really separate, separate the sense that she was making of it with the visual nature of the work. And when she came to the Brodsky Center, she had just, her father had recently died. She had just finished the manuscript for Old in Art School. So this came at the end of a very difficult period in her life, but she was past that now, and that she felt more freedom in terms of her creative process. This was also in February of 2017, so right after the last presidential inauguration. So when she first got to the Brodsky Center, she said she had an encounter with somebody there, which sparked this work and sparked this question, and also seemed to be a real watershed for her, that she was adding more of herself and her personal experience and contemporary life into her artwork, whereas that is not something that she had been doing before. So she had been out of art school for about 6 years, working quite steadily, making a lot of work, making a lot of portraits, but she had not really added in any sort of contemporary issues into her work. So these are the first two panels from You Say, This Can't Really Be America. And this sort of replicates this conversation that she had with someone, but it's also, I think, an imagined conversation. So you might ask yourself, what does this have to do with hearing? I actually think it has quite a lot to do with hearing, because these panels really replicate a conversation between the artist and another person. So it starts out with saying, you say, this is the worst thing ever, ever. And she responds, I say, yes, this is America too. So one of the things that I love about the way she set this up is it's actually a self-portrait. The two figures in the work is a self-portrait. And when she's on the left, she is back from the viewer and she's listening. And when she responds, she moves towards the front. You might also notice that there are two different fonts being used here, and that I think is very intentional as well. So her, the U speaks in a sans serif font, and she speaks in a serif font, so that you have a real sense that there are two different people speaking here and that this is an exchange. I also love the background, which gets repeated throughout the series. She's used these abstract planes to create sort of an interior architectural space, but also you'll notice that the colors and the density starts to shift as well. So when she is listening, and I think this is a very active listening, she moves towards the back and the colors get very faded. When she is speaking, the colors get denser and she starts moving towards the front. You'll also notice that this image of herself that she's using, her finger is extended, so she is making a point. So you say, this is the worst thing ever, ever. I say, this is America too. Could I have the next slide? Here you see, actually, the listening figure is starting to move. She's starting to sort of get closer, as if she's listening even harder. You say, this can't really be America. I say, yes, this is the America I know. So that she is speaking from her experience as a trained historian of American culture and as a Black woman. But you also notice that as the colors are getting even deeper and denser, so she's becoming even more emphatic in her responses. I say, yes, this is the America I know. Next slide, please. Then again, you see the figure is moving. You say, this isn't really America, not the America you know. And she responds, I say, yes, this is the America I know from history. So again, she is moving closer to the picture plane. The colors are getting darker. And actually the two figures are getting closer to one another. Can I have the next slide? And this is the final panel in the series. You say, we've never seen anything like this before. She says, I say, this is America. Look south, look west. Signaling directly to historical facts that she knows. Westward expansion was very much tied up with slavery and also with the, misinformation and the domination of people, and that through her knowledge of US history and through her lived experiences, she is having this conversation with this other person, this you, and they are sort of interacting. So I see this as being related to hearing because it is very conversational, very much an interactive action, but I also find it interesting that the way the conversation spins out, it seems to me as if the you is not really listening. The you might be hearing what she says. She says several times, I think every panel says, I say, yes, this is America. I say, yes, this is America. And yet the questions keep coming. So that this series of works is really about that process of having a conversation with someone who might not really be listening to you, maybe hearing what you're saying, but not really absorbing the message that you are trying to impart. So I see this work as being an integration. So there's the self-portrait there, and it's an integration of her whole self. It includes her academic training and her personal experience with her, her training as an artist and her training as a historian, so that she's able to sort of bring her whole self to bear in the creation of this work that is really so much, not only about American history and about the presence, but about dialogue. So with that, I will turn the floor over to my colleague, Emma Chubb, who will talk about Hương Ngô's work.
Hello. So thank you, April. I'm excited to see you all today. And I'm going to talk about this video in our collection. It's by the artist Feng Ngô, who is an artist who's really invested in archival research, as April mentioned at the outset. And for the last decade and a half, Ngô has created conceptually rich art that spans performance, video, photography, printmaking, sculpture, textile, neon, and has even included a typeface that she developed with a graphic designer. And she's someone who often works collaboratively. Today, she is an assistant professor of contemporary practices at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which is also where she earned her MFA. She's also an alum of UNC Chapel Hill, and she completed the Whitney Museum's Independent Study Program as well. And her research in Vietnam and in France have been funded by organizations such as the Fulbright, as well as the Camargo Foundation. So much as Nell Painter does, and you say this can't really be America, Ngô often takes a personal or familial memory, story, or as we'll see here, a song, as a starting point for work that addresses power and history in ways that center the experiences of refugees, of migrants, and of members of anti-colonial resistance movements. She pays special attention to strong women, and these include the strong women in her life, so members of her own family, as well as those whose traces she encounters in institutional archives. And she describes her process as follows, and I'll quote, "I often start with contradictions between personal experiences and the way that my history is told to me. And I try and make visible some of the things that are rendered invisible." Language is a really important theme in her work. And I think this is in part because language is something that is deeply personal. So we each have our own language that we speak, our own way of speaking that is inflected by the lives that we live and the people and the places that we live in community with. But language is something that's also inextricable from questions of power and belonging and representation. So we can think about the ways that language and its corollaries, such as accent or vocabulary or rhythm of speech, are often used by those in positions of relative power to oppress or confine or control. There's a lot of examples of this. I think we've all encountered them in probably every part of our lives. But some examples are things like tone policing, efforts to correct how someone speaks, hostile demands to someone to say, speak English. And then we also have these more kind of institutional forms of control around language that take place in the form of something like censorship. In Ngô's work, writes art historian Faye Gleiser, and I'll quote, "The materiality of the Vietnamese language, and all language for that matter, is the site through which identity, community, and knowledge are constantly negotiated," end quote. This negotiation and its attendant questions of whose voices and stories are heard, unvalued, and why, is part of what's at stake in her video from 2016, The Voices in Archive, which the Smith College Museum of Art purchased in 2018. So I'm going to show you a 1-minute clip that we really hope will work because the sound was a little finicky, ironically, as we practiced. So I will go ahead and share my screen as soon as we do it. And I'll just say that we sent around a link to Ngô's website to view the video in full. It's 6 minutes long. So hopefully some of you had a chance to do that. Whether or not you did, I really hope that after this program, you visit her website and watch it in full. since I think things always reveal themselves more through multiple watchings. So just to set this up, this is minute 1.5 to 2.5 from the video, which is 6 minutes in total. And it's from the first third of the video. And as you watch it, I'm going to ask that you pay attention to 2 different things. The first is what you hear and how sound is layered in the video. Hopefully the sound will work okay for all of us on Zoom land. And the second thing I hope that you can pay attention to is the relationship between image and sound. So think about how what you see relates to what you're hearing. So I'll go ahead and play this now.
Okay, let's go back. So now it's recording. Okay, so we're good. And then make sure the camera's recording. Red light. Okay. Okay, and then we're gonna clap. Take 1. All right. It sounds weird. Oh, okay. It's a recording. Okay.
Có mẹ Bình ở trên kia.
Yeah.
Lòng mẹ bao la như biển Thái Bình
Sao
nào. Tình mẹ tha thiết như dòng suối hiền ngọt ngào. Lời ru êm ái như đông mùa chiều thì sao.
Tiếng ru êm tiếng ru êm dòng tàn bao.
Okay. So we can go back to the slides, please. All right. So in the clip that we just watched, which hopefully sounded mostly okay to all of you, we see 3 screens that are in a line, and it's kind of like a triptych. We see 2 women on either side with a girl in the center. And this is the artist who's on the right, her sister on the left, and her sister's daughter, or the artist's niece, in the center. In the first part, we watch Nell and her niece setting up the scene of recording. And then we watch all 3 engage with acts of active listening as they face the camera. And then a 4th voice comes on, and this voice is someone who's not pictured, so it's this disembodied voice. And the 4 start to sing together, and they're a little asynchronous. But then the 3 voices of the people we see drop out, and we see them singing, but we hear the voice of this off-screen person. And then and then their voices come in, and this sort of continues throughout the video. So as we watch and listen to these 3 family members sing along to the recording of No's mother singing in Vietnamese, so this is how the video progresses over the next 6 minutes. The song, No told me, is about a mother's love for her child. She compares her love to many things in the song, to the full moon in autumn, to the breeze on the surface of a lake, and to a gentle stream. It's a song that No remembers her mother singing quite often when she was young, usually while cooking dinner. So it has a strong connection to memories of No's childhood. And the story that the artist told me about how this all kind of came into being is thus. At one point, she recorded her mother, she said somewhat spontaneously on her phone, singing a song. She'd originally wanted her mom to sing a different song she remembered, but her mom didn't remember that song, so she sang this song instead. And then she kind of forgot about the recording, and later on was on vacation with her sister and her niece and working on a video project, and proposed that they film themselves performing and singing along with this recording of No's mother to the best of their ability. So that's what we see here. So one of the things that I really admire in this piece is how it employs what seems at first quite simple of a structure. So it's this kind of familiar setup. We have a recording, in essence, of several family members singing along to a recording of another family member. So it seems kind of straightforward. But in fact, how I understand this work is that it really creates all these different layers that kind of play out the more and more you watch the piece and think through, and also think about it in the context of her work more broadly. So I'm going to list a few of those. This is not exhaustive, and we can certainly talk about more in the Q&A. So these are just a few layers for your consideration. The first is the move from the memory of something heard many years ago during the artist's childhood, which is the song a mother sings while cooking, to its rearticulation and reperformance in the present by members of the artist family. So there's this move across time and from memory into enactment. So we also have this staging of 3 generations of one family, all women, 4 different women, and 4 different recordings all together. So there's this kind of layering of time and people. We have a meditation, I think, on what listening looks like, to go back to our theme for this conversation. And one of the ways that I think you see that is how, as the people on the screen are singing along, their eyes kind of dart up as they're paying attention. So there's this representation in a way of the act of hearing, the act of listening. There's also, I think, another component of this is the differences between the Vietnamese that's sung by the mother and then the Vietnamese that's sung by the artist, by her sister, and by her niece. There's also this, for me, very highly affective register for the work. This comes up a little bit later than the clip that I showed, but it's a moment where Noah's sister starts to tear up and cry, and she turns away from the camera and she wipes her eyes. And then her daughter, who at this point is behind the camera with her aunt, we hear her speak up from off screen and ask her mother if she's okay. And I think for me, that moment really concretizes something about hearing and about listening, which is that what we hear is so often received through the layers of that which we are taught to hear, to listen for, and what we've heard before. And so there's always memory and history built into what at surface might seem like a very biological sensory act. And then the last layer I'll add to this that I see in this work is really a generous and intimate invitation from the artist to listen to the beautiful voice of her mother as it is surrounded and held up and cared for by her daughters and her granddaughter. And I think that's a real act of generosity, I would say, to share that with all of us, who she may never meet. So I'll let Noah have the last word here, and I'll quote her talking about this specific video. Quote, "Through the process of reperforming the song, or performing the song, we reveal our own histories through our voices, reimagining the body itself as an archive. This project constantly reminds me to expand my notion of what should be or might be deemed worthy of remembering." So with that, I'll hand it off to Tyga for the Q&A.
Thank you, Emma and April. Hi, I'm Tyga, and I'm an educator at the museum. And I will now share any questions that you have with Emma and April for perhaps 5-10 minutes. We'll see how it goes to conclude our program. So April, we have a question of, can you say something about Nell Painter's technique?
Sure. The medium of the work or the technique of making it, or both?
The question just says technique, so.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll give it a shot. So, yeah. So as I mentioned, she really loves this combining handwork and digital work, and the digital work really helps her separate what she calls discursive meaning from the visual, which was something she really struggled with in art school. So obviously, I think the digital is, and the inkjet would be the text, and I believe also the drawing, the self-portrait drawing, which is in the corner, that is something that she drew and scanned and was able to sort of manipulate, so in the size and also in the positioning, and then have that printed. And that also the screen printing, which would be the background, really is able to give that flat saturated color. So she's really able to modulate the color to sort of create that appearance of emphatic speech through the deepening of the color, so that it's sort of a layered process where the screen prints would have been laid down first, and then the digital printing would have been put over. So she talked about how when I had a conversation with her, how she really planned out the compositions before she started. She was working with a master printer. This was the first time she had worked with a master printer. So someone that could really kind of help her manage the technical aspects to be able to create a seamless looking edition. So she worked with a guy named Randy Hemminghouse, who was the master printer at the Brodsky Center when it was at Rutgers. And he is a very, very talented printer in many different media, and specifically has been working an awful lot in digital. So that's, I mean, if there's other questions about technique, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Yes, the person said that they would like answers for both categories. So I think you covered it. Yes, so thank you. And now, Emma, the question is, the person's also interested in facial expressions of the singers. Anything more to say about that?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to this question I tried to throw out there about what listening or hearing looks like. I think one of the things that I noticed in watching the piece is the way, well, there's a few things. One is the intimacy between the people on screen. So especially in the first minute or two where Hong is getting her niece set up, there's this kind of back and forth in this moment where she can see her niece is kind of pausing. And so she says, are you lost? Do you want to start over? So there's this whole kind of intimacy that gets communicated through, I think, the comfort that I notice in her niece in front of the camera with her aunt. But I think in terms of listening, I think that part of what happens is that we see how they're listening and trying to concentrate. That sort of manifests, I think, in the faces. And so there's a couple moments where I notice all of the speakers at different points, or singers looking up and kind of their eyes moving back and forth as I think a sign of concentration. So I think that comes into that. And then later on, as I mentioned, we see this very affective moment of the sister who's on the left turn her face away as she gets starts to tear up or have a kind of more emotional response, I think, to the sound of, I'm guessing, listening to her mother singing a song about the love a mother has for the child while she's being taped by her daughter. So there's a lot of, I think, emotional registers that is evoking, and comes out a lot in the facial expressions.
Okay, so this would apply to both of you. Both artists embed themselves in these pieces. Do they do so in their other works?
Well, I guess I will start and say yes, but I think that Nell is, moving in another direction. A lot of her early work was portraits, and a lot of them self-portraits. She said, particularly in art school, she was interested in specifically learning how to paint dark skin, which is very challenging, making sure that you get the right reflections. And she was the most available model. So she has done a lot of self-portraits, and in fact, most of the prints that she did at Brodsky were self-portraits or included this self-portrait figure. I think she's moving away from that now, but certainly portraiture was something that interested her quite a bit in her early career, and I think is something that she's included in a lot of her works.
And I'll say for No that she appears in her works, but I think in a lot of them it's sort of more members of her family. So she, in a collaboration that she did with another artist, did a whole project that's about their mothers and their story of immigration to the US from Vietnam. And so there's a lot of the personal in the work. She also had a show a couple years ago in Chicago that dive more into her own family's experience as refugees, first in Hong Kong and then later arriving to the US. And so some of those memories, she mines those for works that I think are rooted in the personal, but have a much more expansive kind of quality that formally and subject matter too. So it's all kind of rooted in that personal experience and those personal narratives, but then it extends, I think, much further beyond the artist's immediate, say, biography or self-representation.
Right. And as a follow-up to that, I think someone is also asking, do you know of any other works similar to No? In other words, listening to a voice of a parent, possibly one who has died?
So I'll say, in this case, the artist's mother was alive when they made this work. So that's good. And so I think there's a lot of artists that are interested in family histories, especially ones in which those stories feel like they've been absented or occluded from maybe a broader national or regional narrative. I can think of artists, actually this work makes me think a lot about the work of Zineb Sidira, who is a French, British, Algerian artist who made a work called Mother Tongue a while ago at this point, that has her daughter and her mother in conversation. And it really is about language and the ways in which, through Sidira's own migrations, it's such that her mother, who speaks Arabic, and her daughter, who speaks English, don't have a shared language. So that's one example of Sidira's work. And there's a lot of artists, I think, especially who are working across different registers or locations, that personal archives or familial archives come into their work and become a way to get at or transmit stories that they don't see or maybe haven't otherwise encountered in a more official kind of capacity.
And there are a couple of questions I'm going to put together. One was whether or not you know, or if the song was a familiar one to Vietnamese culture. And this question, what's lost in hearing when we don't understand the lyrics?
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to the first question, but we could certainly find out. I think in terms of what's lost, I think part of, well, there's a couple ways one could cue the viewer into that gloss of the meaning of the song through a wall label, through the text. So that would be one way to have access to that knowledge. I do think, though, that the sort of, not necessarily, you don't need to know the immediate translation in order to have access to the kinds of stories that are being told or transmitted. So this question of this intergenerational relationship, the different relationships to a comfort in Vietnamese, that between what we hear in the mother and then what we see in the efforts to reperform the song by her daughters and her granddaughter. And I think too, that affective element where there is this kind of strong emotional moment that even if we don't know why the sister might be tearing up, we see it happening in this moment of care that her daughter extends to her offspring. So I think also, you know, there's part of growing up across languages as an immigrant or someone who lives outside of where their native tongue is spoken. There's always these moments of where something is happening that you don't necessarily have full access to linguistically. And I think that's also a thing to lean into a little bit more, to feel uncomfortable with not necessarily being able to hear, understand everything in the way that we might want to. And it maybe gets to a point too that we hear a lot that we don't receive as information. So, you know, you can watch a movie and miss 20% of the words, even for me in, you know, my primary languages, but there's still, I don't know, we don't control language maybe as much and meaning as much as we might like to, which I think is interesting.
Right. And do you think, Emma, do you think choosing black and white is important?
You know, that's an interesting question. I haven't talked with the artists about that at all. I mean, there's clearly a decision that's made to film it in black and white, and you know, there's this black and white motif that is framed both with headphones that we see that are white, the two sisters are wearing black shirts, the niece is wearing a white shirt. So I think it is part of the mise en scène of the piece. I haven't totally theorized it. If sometimes these choices are very significant, and sometimes they're maybe more just what looked better with the camera that they had in that moment while they were on vacation, with the backdrop that they had. So.
Okay, and this will be our last question, and we promise we didn't plant this question. It is, does Smith have an extensive collection of videos?
Yeah, so we have actually the largest time-based media video moving image collection in our region, which is really fortunate for us. And a lot of that actually has come through the support of our Contemporary Associates member group, whose contributions funded this purchase and many of our other really important video pieces. We have now about a little over 24 works. Many of them are single channel works, so one screen, but we also have several multi-channel 2 and 3 channel works. And we are very fortunate at the museum to have a dedicated video gallery. So if you haven't been to the museum in a couple of years, you might not have seen it, but it's a gallery that was put into place several years ago where we can basically have a black box space to show video One of the things I really like actually about this piece, and I didn't mention it, is that it can be shown on a monitor too with headphones in the gallery. So it sets up this relationship too between the viewer and the video where we also watch it with headphones, similar to how they perform it with headphones. So there's a kind of intimacy of watching it get set up. But yeah, we have a great video collection and we have most of the information on our website if you're curious.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I am now going to turn it back to Lauren, and I believe we may see this reading list, and Lauren will talk to you more about accessing it. Thank you.
Hi again, everyone, and thank you, Tyga, for this wonderful Q&A, April and Emma for your presentation, and Louise Krieger for assisting with the PowerPoint. If we didn't get to your questions, please feel free to contact the SCMA members email. And the recommended readings will be sent also via email tomorrow as well, so you can get that list. So you don't have to worry about writing everything down right now. If you go to the next slide, please. Yep, so that's just the contact information for the members email, again, if we didn't get to your question. And the next slide, please. Yep, so despite this being the last session of this series, which is very sad, I did want to mention that there are a few upcoming virtual programs for this fall. The first two programs in September and October are a collaboration between SCMA and the Smith College Poetry Center. The publication, The Map of Every Lilac Leaf, Poets Respond to the Smith College Museum of Art, features 40 poems written in response to work from the permanent collection of SCMA. Later this fall, there will be virtual programming surrounding the special exhibition, SCMA Then Now Next, which explores what it means to make a museum and how museums are remade. Please stay tuned on our website and social media for more information. I also wanted to mention that despite the museum being closed to the public, the museum shop is open and shipping orders. In addition to our beautiful poetry anthology, we also have an artist designed tote bag from Hwan No, whose work was featured in today's presentation, as well as other unique and creative items. Finally, I wanted to thank all of our fabulous members and donors who make programs like this possible. If you are not a member or have questions about membership, please go to our website for more information. Thank you all, and we hope to see you soon.